This is Mike Rougeau with Combo.com. I'm here checking out Halo Reach with Brian Gerard.
We knew this day would come. They have found our fortress among the stars. The Covenant are on Reach.
Why Reach? Halo has such a complex lore, such a huge universe. There were so many things that you could have checked out with the final Halo game from Bungie. Why go with a prequel?
Well, the first thing that we did at the studio, obviously, the easiest thing to do, most obvious, was why don't we just make Halo a proper Halo 4? Why don't we just pick up where 3 left off and keep telling Master Chief's story? And that's really the first thing that we talked about as a team. But just a lot of things about that weren't as appealing to us that started to make Reach something that was more exciting. And the idea of going back to a prequel brought a lot more creative freedom with it, and sort of didn't have all the baggage to carry forward to sort of keep going with Master Chief's sort of huge space opera and all that had come before it, and all the sort of just background that you'd have to be familiar with to be able to dive into that. And also not something that we necessarily could do as a self-contained story and tie it up in a neat bow at the end. And Reach has always been a really interesting part of our universe. There's a novel about it. Fans love it. It's just the pivotal sort of turning point. It's the genesis of the whole Halo saga that Bungie's been working on, and just something really cool about being able to come full circle and have our last game be going back to where it all began and give players a chance to sort of kickstart into motion all the events that they've come to know and love over the past decade. And also the prequel gives us a chance to deliver on this, something fans have wanted forever, which is to be able to go into battle with a squad of Spartans and not just be this lone last Spartan remaining, where obviously in a world of a post-Halo 3 story, still would have only just been one guy, Master Chief, and all the other Spartans are gone at that point. So story-wise, gameplay-wise, sort of going back to that pivotal part and doing all these things, we got really excited about it and immediately kind of gravitated to it, and ideas just started to build from there.
Cool. Do you consider Reach more a return to form for the series or more of a departure from past games?
I don't know if I would say a return to form. To me, that seems to imply that we somehow lost form along the way. But we view Reach as definitely sort of the culmination of all the Halo games before it. It's sort of carrying forward and building upon this foundation, looking at Halo 1 all the way through ODST to try and pinpoint all the things that we felt really worked and were successful with each game, and how do we carry those forward into this new game, but how do we refine them and make them even better? So I mean, it's really, I think it's the culmination, the evolution of everything that's come before it, but also putting in brand new things to try and push it a little further and just keep refining it, and hopefully, from our perspective, build something that we think is a game that will define the entire series and be the culmination of 10 years worth of work.
Well, the only reason I say return to form is because things like dual wielding and equipment that were added into previous games have been taken out completely. Now, why did you take those things out?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's been various things that have kind of come and gone as the series has progressed. For us, dual wielding is something that it was interesting. It was a novelty. For Halo 2, it was a big part of the game. Obviously, it was a sort of a big leap. For Halo 3, it was included but became less used by a lot of people, and it just kind of was a balanced design decision. In some ways, you look at the sandbox of Reach, like the weapons, we've actually reduced the number of weapons in the game in a lot of ways, and focused more on quality versus quantity, and made sure that our designers, their intent was that every weapon had a real purpose, a real role. There isn't that case anymore where you pick something up and you're like, oh damn, I got an SMG, this sucks, I can't wait to find something better. I think every weapon in Reach has a use.
Right, and if anything, it feels like there's more weapons because of that.
Yeah, there's nothing that you feel stuck with, and honestly, that's kind of the reason that dual wielding got thrown away, is because there wasn't any underpowered weapon like an SMG that was only good if you had 2 of them, and now every weapon's kind of been made to work properly and be useful. So if you could dual wield 2 of those pistols, it would break the entire game.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So have these changes been brewing for a while, sort of in the minds of you guys at Bungie? Have you been thinking this is stuff that you wanted to take out, or additions you wanted to make, or did ideas sort of come on the spot like that?
A lot of it is iterative. I mean, at the start of every project, the first thing you do is always look back and sort of take stock of what you had just done, and there's always a long laundry list of stuff that you wanted to do but didn't have time to do in the prior game or had to compromise on. And I think in the case of dual wielding, I think the team was happy with it for Halo 2. It was fun. I think in Halo 3 started to realize that it just wasn't a pivotal part of the sandbox experience, and there was never a moment where we thought we'd have dual wielding in Reach. But armor abilities are a really good example of sort of how we've been able to iterate and evolve. And looking back at the equipment in Halo 3 was something that we liked from sort of a dynamic gameplay perspective. It's this item that you could use at the right time and in the right place, and it had just a dynamic change in what was happening on the battlefield. What we didn't like about it was just kind of how confusing and nebulous it was, and the anxiety it created where you picked up that bubble shield and you don't know, should I use it, should I save it?
Yeah.
Oh damn, I saved it, now my battle's over and I feel bad because I wasted this thing and I don't even know what this other thing is that I'm holding. So the idea was, well, how can we build on that but still let them, like, don't penalize people for using it, encourage them to use it and making them more persistent, giving them this recharging energy that sort of just immediately kind of became like it's always been part of the Halo sandbox, and that was just the evolution of going through that process.
Interesting. So expectations for Reach are obviously extremely high. What specific things from a design standpoint have you guys done to try to ensure that it meets all those expectations from fans of all your previous games?
Well, I mean, I think one of Bungie's priorities and one of the hallmarks of all Bungie games is just attention to detail and polish, and really trying to make sure that we deliver a solid experience and it isn't full of bugs and things that break and detract from people having fun. So I mean, with Reach, that's no different. I think one of the things we've done, we try to put a lot more emphasis on, is just making the game first have even more things to do with your friends, more types of experiences, more game modes, more features, and just keep you playing and give this longevity to Reach that we haven't had before, with people making their own firefight game types and sharing and making new maps and multiplayer modes, and like all these things are meant to sort of eventually help the game sort of sustain itself, and the community at large sort of will take the reins and keep Reach going forward. So I think that's going to be a huge appeal for fans, just in terms of value and how much there is to do in the game. But, you know, ultimately we still want to tell a great story. We still want to pull people into what we feel is the best campaign experience yet. And whether you play it by yourself or cooperatively, you know, we think it's polished and it represents something that we're really proud of. And that's the thing I think people are going to start with, and then hopefully they'll start to see that there's a wealth of other things to do inside the game as well.
Right, so it's obviously a game for fans. Do you think it's a game that's going to sway skeptics and naysayers and sort of people who don't really like Halo that much?
Well, I mean, it's still a Halo game, and it was important to us not to break what makes Halo a Halo game. I think it's the best Halo game yet. So I mean, you know, in a world where a lot of people have started to move into other types of shooters and a lot of different gaming, you know, preferences have started to emerge, that might be refreshing to go back to a game like Halo for the first time, or a change of pace. And the pacing of this game is a little bit different. I think it's a little more, it is a little more forgiving, a little less twitchy at times than some other games in the market. And story-wise, it's definitely important to us that whether you're, you know, literally a 10-year Halo fan that's read every novel, or someone who's never played a game before in your life, that you can jump right in, understand what's going on, and have a great experience. But for hardcore fans, there's definitely stuff. If you look between the cracks, you'll find some stuff that will provide more insight and sort of fill out your knowledge of the Halo universe. But yeah, I think Reach definitely, you know, if there's ever been a time to experience Halo or want to try and dip your toe into the Halo pool, there's never been a better time than right now with Reach.
Yeah, I agree. So Halo is as a series is chock full of biblical references with the Flood and the Ark and everything else, and ODST paralleled Dante's Inferno in a lot of ways that I didn't pick up on my first couple times through that game. Are there any similar allusions in Reach?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say intentionally necessarily. You know, who's to know sometimes what's going on inside the head of some of our story writers. I mean, we definitely don't sit down and try and bring this extra layer of depth to a lot of the stuff that we do, but we are obviously influenced by everything around us. So I don't know if I could pinpoint a specific reference. I mean, if anything, this entire planet is being destroyed, right? But it is really about sacrifice and hope, and about sort of the good of many boiling down to the sacrifices of a few. And you know, I think hopefully throughout the game, people will sort of see that this one team, in the face of insurmountable odds and in this moment of darkness, there can still be a ray of hope, and it does set forth in motion something that's much bigger than just these people.
So moving on to multiplayer for a bit, how much did the studio learn from the multiplayer beta? Were there a lot of changes made after that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you've probably heard we had about a little over 2.7 million unique people that played this beta, and that was only in a 3-week span. So, you know, it was incredibly important and valuable for us. I mean, we we want to make a game that people play online for years, and that means it has to be solid, has to be balanced, has to be fun, and it just can't be full of glitches and exploits and issues that will turn people away. And we're also doing tons of great new things with our website and ways to sort of with content sharing, custom content creation, all this stuff we had to test at a scale that could be as close as possible to what we'll have on day one. So, you know, the beta for us did help us to make sure that on September 14th, the game experience will be a lot more solid. But on the gameplay and design side, we've done a whole bunch of stuff directly as a result of the beta, just to kind of fine-tune and turn some knobs and tighten some things up. And I think the single biggest change that most fans will find, besides just the obvious sort of bug tweaks and things that were just in progress at that time, is the base speed of the game has been increased a little bit more closer to what it was in Halo 3. And you know, it's always been our intent to make a Spartans of Noble team and to make this game be a little bit different, a little more closer to ODST, I guess, if you will, than Halo 3. These aren't the single Spartan super soldiers like Master Chief. We want these guys to be a little more vulnerable, a little more human-like. But the overwhelming feedback from the beta was that the game was too slow. People didn't think it felt like Halo. They'd gone straight from playing 5,000 games of Halo 3 to playing this next game the next day, and it was a massive, just very jarring for them. And as a result, we've kind of gone in, and the design team has tweaked some of those things, and I think it'll feel a lot more familiar now, but still be a little bit different, which I think in the end is going to be better for everyone.
Yep, excellent.